What is going on, guys and gals? My name is Schematocles, and today we're doing something incredibly different, which is playing a little bit of Infinite Flight, which is an app, flight simulator app for both iPhone and Android. And I've been away from home this weekend, so I haven't had a chance to record on the computer, but I did find this, and it actually has a built-in recording feature. So we're sitting here in the C-17 Globemaster 3 on the ramp at San Diego International, and we're going to be doing a short hop from San Diego up to Edwards Air Force Base today, which is due pretty much north of here. We've got some flight test equipment on board, and we're going to be moving it from the Naval Air Station up to Edwards. So a little bit about the app. It is $5, which is pretty cool, because that basically means that if you have a smartphone, a relatively recent smartphone, which I do, it's the latest generation Android phone, you can play a flight sim for $5 with a bunch of really cool default planes like the C-17. And I think that that's great, because it's actually kind of a barrier to entry for a lot of people to spend, several $1,000s on a computer that's capable of running X-Plane 11 or an equivalent. So this is neat. I think that it kind of gets, flight simulator type stuff into everybody's hands. So I like what they do with it. Obviously, the graphics are not going to be anywhere near as good as what you'd see on a computer, which is kind of to be expected. But I think it really does do a good job of kind of capturing the feel of flying. So, and also it has a built-in video recording feature, which I'm using here. I'm actually recording this voiceover after the fact because it didn't capture my voice, but that's fine. So basically this makes it really easy for me to kind of record quick little videos of flights when I'm away from home or on travel. So let me know what you guys think about the idea, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so starting our taxi here. The UI is a little bit wonky sometimes. You kind of have to get used to using touch controls. Obviously, it's not going to be as tactile of an experience as you like with a HOTAS, but it's pretty good. They have pretty much all the autopilot features and everything kind of built in to the airplanes, which is cool. So you've got vertical speed mode, altitude, speed and heading, so we'll be using those throughout the flight today. Should be relatively short hop, probably only about 40 minutes or so total duration. I just figured I would share this with you guys and see what your opinion on it is. A little bit of information about the C-17 Globemaster. Its first flight was on the 15th of September, 1991. It was introduced into the military on 17 January of 1995, and it's primarily used by the Air Force as a cargo hauler. And these things are pretty incredible. You can look up videos on YouTube of C-17s doing pretty much 90-degree vertical takeoffs. So they're really, really powerful, and they can haul a lot of cargo. I think they can even fit M1 Abrams tanks and Apache helicopters, stuff like that, in the cargo bay. So I figured I would fly something a little bit different that I couldn't necessarily fly in X-Plane or FSX. So here I am in the C-17. I have a lot of other planes by default in Infinite Flight. Let me think about this. The A321's in there, the A380, which is the big Airbus, kind of like the heavy equivalent of the 747. The 7377 is in there by default. There are a lot of other airplanes. The Dreamliner's in there, but you have to pay for it. So there are a lot of payware airplanes and stuff as well. And I actually don't own any of the payware airplanes, so I can't speak to their quality. But I did notice they have an F-22. So I was thinking about doing a little video of that. Cost $5, I think. But it is cool, and if you have a smartphone, presumably you can run this. I don't think it's like super intense or anything. I know there are a lot of mobile games on Android that have better graphics than this. Okay, so talking about the takeoff just a little bit, I'm actually not going to use the autopilot system because what tends to happen is you'll set a vertical speed, and here you just saw I calibrated because I'm actually going to be using the manual flight controls, so I calibrated the accelerometer. But what I was saying was if you set the vertical speed to anything positive on the autopilot while you're trying to take off, it will actually begin to rotate before rotation speed, and you can stall really easily by doing that. So I basically shoot the takeoff and the final approach for this flight by hand, which is a little bit safer. The autopilot systems kind of seem to vary from airplane to airplane too. The A321, for instance, has it's ILS equipped, so you can fly the approach via the autopilot, which is really cool. But in the C-17, I don't believe you can do that. I don't think it has that functionality. As you can see, this thing can really move. But now we're going to go ahead and engage the autopilot, set the speed for about 220 knots, vertical speed of about 2,000 feet per minute. Taking off to the west today. So let me go ahead and show you how to actually navigate. The first waypoint that you set after takeoff, you want to go ahead and click the direct button, which we'll see in just a moment here. So I'm basically trying to find a waypoint that'll line me up for runway 33 at Edwards relatively well. And KNFG looks as good as any. So basically you want to tap on that and hit the D for direct. And then on the actual heading bug, it'll show you what exact heading you need to fly from your current position to hit that waypoint. So I'm turning to 340, and that will actually change as you move. So you'll see me check that several more times throughout the flight. And we'll get back into how you kind of string together waypoints in a minute, but you can see me adjusting here because I am relatively close to these waypoints. It'll actually change the heading I need to fly to get there. And I don't think that there's any way to kind of automate the navigation. I think you have to set the points and then go into the heading change manually in the autopilot. But it is nice that the autopilot's included because it would be very kind of tiresome to have to hold the phone and fly via accelerometer the entire time. So it's cool that that functionality is embedded. And you'll see me check this probably, once or twice every minute for the next 30 or so minutes. So here, stringing together the rest of the points that we're going to fly. Once you've kind of set your first direct point, you can more or less pick the next waypoints along the route, and then you just hit plus instead of the direct arrow, and it'll add them on to the route that you're currently flying. So I think I'm going to do Kilo Papa Oscar Charlie here. Yep, so I'm just hitting the plus key, and then we'll string that right into Edwards. And there's runway 33, which is what we're going to try and shoot the approach on. There's no real ATC or anything at this point. I don't know if there will be. It'd probably be a little bit too much to manage comfortably on a touchscreen. So I suspect that's why. But I think they've done a good job of kind of getting everything into a bite-sized package that's relatively easy to manage. As we kind of speed up to 250 knots here, this aircraft can really move. Designed to do kind of quick insertions of troops and stuff, so they have a very short landing and takeoff roll, and they can land on dry lake beds drop off an Apache helicopter or a tank or whatever and get out of there in a hurry. Unfortunately, none of the actual sound made it into the video, and I don't think that the built-in recording feature for Infinite Flight will actually record sound. So I guess you guys will just have to make jet noises or whatever to pretend. So that's a little bit unfortunate. It would be nice if there were a functionality that let you do that. Let me know if you're familiar with it and that there is. I just couldn't find one. So we'll probably cruise at around 20,000 feet today. You can see on the GPS we're about 120 nautical miles out from Edwards, so we've got a good ways to go. So that'll let us kind of get up to cruise altitude and speed up and kind of stay there for a while before we have to begin our descent. Go to some external views. You can see the aircraft don't look that bad. I think they're actually pretty decent looking for what it is. Some of the airplanes don't actually have moving flight control surfaces, like the C-17. I don't think actually has any animation at all. But the A321 does, and the A380 does. And those are the two other airplanes that I've spent most of my time flying on. But this is cool. You can just kind of pull it out of your pocket, you know, at lunch or whatever, and do a flight if you're bored. Okay, so passing through 10,000 feet, gonna go ahead and kill the landing lights and the strobes. And I guess people can smoke if they want to. These guys are all military, so they probably deserve it. Probably need it. So I hope you guys have all had a fantastic weekend. I've had a really good one. Very relaxing. At last count, I think we had 145 subscribers. So we're really starting to get up there now, growing in leaps and bounds. Very exciting. Really enjoying talking to all you guys on the videos, interacting and learning from you, and trying to help you if you're having trouble. So I do appreciate each and every comment that you guys drop. It's really motivating for me to keep putting out videos, because it can get a little grindy, you know, but it's worth it. The textures look okay from up here. When you're down low, they look pretty terrible. There's no actual 3D modeling to any of the buildings or anything. Everything's flat, but you can't really tell from high up. As you'll see later on, there are areas where the textures are just pretty much non-existent. There is no city mapping. But right now we're flying over LA, so that's why. Comes with a few like kind of default regions, I guess. Southern California is one of them. Charlotte, North Carolina, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, that area. So I guess that'd be Malaysia. And they're downloadable, or I guess payware airports as well. So you can see now my next waypoint is coming up in less than a minute, and it's basically telling me what heading I'm going to need to turn to string together my next leg. So as I get closer to this waypoint here, you'll see me actually just hold down the heading bug until it changes, and then go ahead and execute the turn. And that's kind of the way I found works best. It does take a little bit of getting used to do this all on a tiny screen. I do have a tablet that I could try doing this on, and it might be a little bit more spread out. Maybe the graphics will even be better. I'm not sure how that works exactly. But this is a lot more convenient. And I don't have to like lug around a computer, you know, on travel. So it's kind of nice. You can see that waypoint just switched. So now I'm changing my heading over to 308. And that'll put us more or less on course. I'll have to adjust several times. peep the external views. I actually have a friend who jumps out of airplanes for a living, and he was basically telling me that the C-130 and the C-17 are kind of the two airplanes that they do jumps in, and the C-130 you have to actually kind of jump out of the rear cargo door, but in the C-17 you really just need to stick your feet out into the wind stream and you'll be sucked out. You can actually see the door right behind the engine there, so that's pretty cool. So that's the door that they jump from, I guess, or they could also jump from the rear cargo hatch. Okay, go ahead and level off here. Around 19,000 feet. So some of the airplanes actually do have virtual cockpits modeled. This one does not. So I'm actually in the virtual cockpit view there, and you can see there's nothing around. And this is just the HUD. So the Airbuses do have virtual cockpits. They also have I want to say a Spitfire, Mark 7 maybe, one of the Spitfires, and a P-38. So those would be really cool to do a flight in eventually. We will be getting back to X-Plane 11 relatively soon. I've just kind of been posting different stuff because I've done flights in like most of the default X-Plane 11 aircraft at this point, and I just don't want to spend too much time on any particular airplane. Although if there's something you guys want to see, let me know. But I had a really cool idea for kind of a video in X-Plane 11, and it's going to involve the SR-71 in all likelihood. I've kind of been working out how to do it. I won't give too much away on that. Hopefully it'll be coming up this week at some point. So that should be pretty cool. There's the view through the LA smog. About 83 nautical miles from runway 33 at Edwards. So making decent time here. Doing about 437 knots on the ground. Just about 500 miles an hour. 470 or so. A little faster than that, probably about 480 or 90. It really is kind of unfortunate that you can't hear the jet sounds. They do sound relatively nice, but I guess you guys will just have to hear me spew bullshit this entire time. That's pretty sweet. Nice little flyby view there. These things have like 15 stages of flaps. I've seen them at air shows. They're actually really nice because you can, let me think about this. I'm not sure if it's the 17. No, the C5 has the nose that folds up. The 17 does not. But we would always, on hot days at air shows, we would go hang out in the nose of the C5 because there was shade. And you actually get elevated up above the rest of the crowd, and you can kind of see out onto the runway. So pretty cool pro tip for air shows, I guess. checking that heading, just make sure I'm aligned with the waypoint. All's well. So now the view has kind of degraded a bit, and you can see the repetition of textures and stuff out in the distance there. But you know, it's really not about like having the most cutting edge technological experience here. I think it's more so just to kind of capture the essence of what a flight simulator should be, and I think they do a good job of that, really. You know, you're not going to feel like you need to go smoke a cigarette afterwards or anything like that, but gets the job done, I'd say. And it's cool, and you can, you know, you can play it in bed or whatever. So it looks like we're coming up on our last waypoint before we turn to Edwards here. So we're going to go ahead and start to descend. Pretty much just a straight in approach. So I'll turn not exactly to heading 343, but I'll kind of swing out to the right to intercept the ILS, or the GPS track for Edwards. Not actually going to use it, but you can see that ILS localizer comb there. So we'll turn a bit right of 343 just to have a straight in approach, and then I'll fly it by hand. Got some foothills up ahead of us, but they shouldn't be a problem. So I believe the C-17 is actually a replacement for the C-130 Hercules, which is an excellent turboprop aircraft that does much the same thing. Has been for a long time. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page here. Apparently, wow. Static wing loading test of the C-17 failed at a safety factor of 1.28. And if you know anything about airplanes, we typically design for a safety factor of 1.5, which basically means that we are basically our maximum anticipated load on the wing for aerodynamic forces is 1.5 times less than that, than what it would take to snap the wing. So the wing is 1.5 times stronger than it needs to be. But the wing on the C-17 during preliminary testing failed at 1.28, which is really bad. And that set back the development by $100 million in several years. Going to turn out a bit more to the east. Just to make that localizer cone. So at this point, only about 37 nautical miles to go. Just gonna start to descend a little bit more quickly here, just to get down. About 13,600 feet. And just below 250 knots. It is kind of a weird looking airplane. Those huge like bumps on the belly on either side, very distinctive look. Pretty cool looking as well. It's one of very few cargo aircraft I know of that's flown with a stick, and it actually has a heads-up display, which is sweet. So you feel like you're flying like a gigantic fighter aircraft. Very cool. So it looks like we're lining up relatively well here. Gonna cut on the strobe and landing lights in a moment as we kind of pass through 10,000 feet. There we go. Seatbelts should have remained fastened the entire time, since it is a relatively short flight today. Get some of the performance parameters here. See if I can find them. So the C-17 can carry up to 102 paratroopers. Three Strikers, one M1 Abrams tank, or 6 M1117 armored security vehicles. Very cool. Maximum payload of 170,000 pounds. Wow. Powered by 4 Pratt & Whitney F-117 PW100 turbofans, which develop 40,440 pounds force of thrust apiece. So over 160,000 pounds of combined thrust. Really impressive. Cruise speed Mach 0.74, 515 miles an hour. Has a range of 2,420 nautical miles. Really impressive. Service ceiling 45,000 feet. So, very cool aircraft, very capable, and they're really ruggedized for landings on developed runways, so they can land on lake beds, what have you, relatively easily. I think they have to have special kind of covers for all the instrumentation, like the pitot probes and stuff, so that sand and grit don't clog those up, because that would obviously be a problem. Only about 17 nautical miles to go until we hit runway 33. So we can actually see it way off in the distance there now. Looks like this glide slope should be fine for the moment. Heading looks good. begin to slow down just a bit more. Get a notch of flaps out there, since we are a little bit on the heavy side today. Go ahead and shallow out the descent rate just a little bit here. So we still got a little way to go. Looks like we're going to need to turn to the right. And momentarily here you'll see me switch off the heading and the vertical speed hold for the autopilot, and I'll really just be using the auto throttle for the rest of the landing, since that's a little bit easier than managing it via touchscreen. I need to come a bit right. Get some more flaps out. Slow down a little bit more. And let's go ahead and calibrate again, just so that we're good to go for this landing and nothing weird happens if I've like shifted my seating position or something. Okay, autopilot's off. Just using the auto throttle. Probably get a bit more flaps out before we touch down. You can see the glide slope recommendation for the runway off to our left there. We'll actually be seeing those for runway 33 as we get closer. Not sure what I'm gonna do for the background for this. I might get some non-copyrighted music, put it on in there, so you guys have something somewhat pleasant to listen to. There's the glide slope path. 25 degrees on flaps. I think we'll land at that setting. Slow down just a bit more. We'll do a high performance stop here just so you guys can see how short the landing ground roll is. That's helpful. Tells us we'll be landing in 60 seconds. More or less on glide slope. Everything looks good here. Landing on a dry lake bed today. Standard fare for the Globemaster 3. Alright, go ahead and flare just a little bit. Alright, touch on the mains, go ahead and brake, and reverse thrust. We're really slowing down now, get back to the runway center line here. And we'll come to a complete stop, and then I'll pan around. And take a look at that. That is not a whole lot of distance. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed this flight and infinite flight on Android today with me and the C-17 Globemaster. If you have, drop a like on the video, dislike it if you didn't, and leave a comment and let me know exactly how you felt about it, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.